What is up, everybody? Happy Monday. I was going to say, hopefully everyone had a good day in the market, but it was a very odd day in the market. If you're ever wondering what a bifurcated market is, this is it. You've got some decent names, with their price action. Then you've just got some absolute just names getting crushed. And that's exactly what's happening right now. So just a very weird market right now. It is August, so keep that in mind that August does have some just crazy kind of price action, and we're seeing that now going into the second half of August. But as always, we'll look at everything. We'll look at SPY, we'll look at the Qs, we'll look at small caps, which are not doing incredibly well, and then we'll look at some individual names. So starting with SPY, you'll see here that we are on the daily chart here, and you'll see that I have these two areas highlighted in green. And what this is it's the volume by price from the July 19th low. So you can see here that we've got quite a few areas, one around, let's say, 440, and another one right around 442, where we've just got a lot of volume holding. And these are these kind of mini volume shelves forming. And so you can see here today, I think a lot of people thought the market was just going to really turn over here and start to move down. And that was not the case. We had quite a move to the upside after a weird start to the morning across the board, not only SPY, but you can see here that we almost closed at the high of the day, hitting new all-time highs on SPY. And what's interesting is notice where we bounced. We bounced right at this volume shelf below. Perfect area to bounce at. And that's exactly where we were able to, you could either say catch a bid, or supply simply started to dry up around here and we got a bounce simply because some of these shares down here were break even and supply dried up and we got the move up. So all in all, a very weird day. SPY at least had a very strong day to end the day. But the one thing that I want to focus on here is this weekly chart. So whenever you're kind of trying to figure out, where is the market in terms of the chart, you always need to zoom out, because a lot of the time these day-to-day fluctuations are really not going to tell you much. And so in this case, you can see here on the weekly chart, we have quite a bit of room to move to the upside. If this thing really started to move to the upside, our resistance is not until we get to around 460, even 462. So, keep that in mind. Now, that's assuming that if we moved pretty quickly to the upside. Now, if we move to the downside, we do have support right around, let's say, 435, 430. Let's just say 430 to 435. And that is just a function of this ascending wedge support on the downside and the ascending wedge resistance on the upside. And so we're kind of literally trading right in the middle of this wedge here. So you do have some pretty high upside and then some pretty low downside. I mean, 447 is where we're at now. And if we did move down, 435 doesn't seem like that far away, but it is a decent move down. I'm sure a lot of people would think the world is coming to an end if that happened, even though we were just there, a few weeks ago. So SPY looking pretty strong start to the week. The Qs, same thing. Very similar here. Now, one thing that I'll start with here on the weekly chart on the Qs is the fact that we once again have a bounce right at this 1.618 extension. So we did close at the high of the day. You can see this is the weekly candle. So we'll look at the daily here in a second, but you'll see here that we did close pretty much at the high of the day. And we did bounce right off that 1.618 extension. And then if we go to the daily chart, you'll see here that we've got this ascending triangle, but we did actually start to break down through it to the downside today, and somehow we're closing at the high of the day. So just a very weird market we're in, but it doesn't matter if the market's weird, if it's normal. It just matters what's going on across the board. And so for here, we're still kind of in that ascending triangle. You can see that we're a little close to the apex of this triangle, but we still have time to kind of chop around if needed. But if we did break to the upside, that's when I think things could really start to take off. And so we're kind of right at this ascending triangle resistance, and we'll just have to see kind of what is going on into the rest of the week. But definitely an impressive candle. So that's the daily and the weekly on the Qs. IWM. This one's definitely just chopping around. It's been chopping around for quite a while now. On top of that, we technically are still in this ascending triangle here. We're kind of trading right at the support area. So for now, the status quo has not changed for small caps. We're just kind of near the bottom of support. Now, when things get interesting is if we break through the support, and we're getting pretty close, but we've been down here before and we've had some pretty big moves to the upside after 3 red days in a row. Same thing here back in mid-July. We had a pretty strong move down for about 4 days, 5 days in a row, and then 2 very strong days to the upside. So generally, when you have a pretty violent move to the downside, you have a pretty violent move to the upside, and I would be willing to guess that's what we're going to have on some of these small cap names, but we'll see. We'll definitely have to see what happens and go from there. So all in all, ascending triangle on the daily chart, and then if we go to the weekly chart, you'll see here that we do have this volume shelf here from the COVID lows that is acting as a supply zone. So you can see here that we have had trouble getting through this area for the last really month, 4 weeks or so. And once again, we were kind of rejected last week. We did pull back, but this seems like consolidation to me rather than distribution. We'll have to see if that's the case. The main area that we've been talking about for quite some time now is just this area below where we've got all these wicks below, right around, let's say, 210 or so. So 210 would probably be the area that kind of changes the status quo. But if not, we're trading around 210 to around 235. And until we break to the upside or the downside, we're literally just chopping around. So, for options traders, this is definitely not what you want to see. You want some type of direction if you're trading options. If you're holding just IWM just as kind of a spot price trade, you're just kind of chopping around. Now, there's always opportunity cost, so keep that in mind. Holding this when there's other stocks moving is something to consider. But, when this moves, it's going to move very hard. Now, the question is, which way does it move? And as I mentioned, the only ways we can really gauge that move is by seeing if we break to the upside or the downside through this channel. And so until then, we're kind of stuck. So small caps, you may not get your small cap summer. We'll have to see. It could turn into a small cap winter. We'll kind of play it by ear. Now let's go into some crypto names. We do have some trending crypto names right now. Bitcoin is one that's kind of pulled back a little bit, but the main thing that I want to point out here is the volume by price from the start of the year. So this is something I don't use a ton, but I did a live stream with Crypto Dime here a couple days ago, I guess last week, and he pointed out this anchored volume by price from the start of the year, and you'll see here that we did hit this break-even supply zone. So this area highlighted in red on Bitcoin acted as a nice supply zone. If we did happen to pull back, the anchored VWAP from the all-time highs is way down here around 42K. And Roy D. Yes, I have traded in August, and they're all different. Last August was very strong. So all in all, you just have to kind of play the price action. Nobody's going to sit here and say, oh, well, I told you that August was going to be this or that. Nobody knows. You just go by the price action. That's how you kind of play this game. So Bitcoin, definitely a strong move. We are hitting kind of this supply zone above. If we do pull back, that anchored VWAP below right around 42K. Now, on top of that, we do have this huge volume gap below. So if you look here, you don't have a lot of liquidity below until you get to this anchored VWAP right around 42K. If that breaks down, you have quite a bit of volume holding right around 40,000. 40,000 is not only where we got another kind of area of volume, a volume shelf below, but also it's just a psychological number. 40,000, even number. That's just how the market works. So if we did move down 42K, if that doesn't hold 40K, keeping it pretty simple there. So Bitcoin, all in all, pretty strong move, but you do get pullbacks in this type of environment when you've moved up so much. Now, if you go to the weekly chart here and anchor the volume by price from the COVID lows, you'll see here kind of the same thing. You'll see if we measure the volume distribution from the COVID lows, you do have quite a bit of volume down here around 35K. So, we'll just have to see what happens. We've had 4 green weeks in a row. So we just ended the week last week. And notice what happened last time we had 4 green weeks in a row. Pretty decent sell-off from around 57.6 all the way down to around 42. So these flushes can be pretty strong. So, keep that in mind. Crypto, that's just how it works. So yeah, keep that in mind. Bitcoin is definitely, I don't know if I call it the leader. I'd say Ethereum's kind of leading right now, but there's other names in the crypto space that are actually continuing to move up. So let's go into some of those. Ethereum, you can see here on Ethereum, also not the strongest start to the week. You can see here that we are actually breaking down through this ascending wedge. So you can see here that we've got this ascending wedge highlighted in red and green, and you can see that we are starting to break down. So, are the leaders starting to break down a little bit? What does that mean for altcoins? Does that mean, money's going to flow into altcoins? We'll have to see what happens. So all in all, definitely not the strongest move to start the week. If we anchor a VWAP from the low, you'll see here that the anchored VWAP is right around 2,600. So, a decent drop coming if we can't hold this area. And you just have to play the trend lines. This is not a very weak trend line. You can see here that we're actually just connecting these 2 points right here. So here's your original point. Here's your next point. We're just extending the trend line. We test it once again here, almost test it again there, test it here, test it here. So this is a trend line that has a lot of data points kind of touching it. So the fact that we are breaking down is probably significant, because this is probably not a pattern that nobody's watching. I'm sure a lot of people have this same pattern on their charts. And remember, these patterns do become self-fulfilling prophecies a lot of the time. So all in all, 2,600 below would definitely be a pretty big target to hit below, but definitely a possible target as some of these profit takers just take some of their profit and move on. Let's look at the chat here. Anything? So not too much. We'll go over a couple of these that you guys pointed out. I have a couple individual names I want to go over. Thoughts on REITs? Not really into REITs. Jay Bay, not really my thing, so I don't really even have any type of comment there. View on HIMS, we will go over that one. That's one, a lot of people will say, well, oh, this stock got hit hard today, or that stock got hit hard today. Whenever you're thinking about that, just go look at the let's say you've got a list of 100 names. Look at how many are red versus how many are green. If you looked at a lot of names today, a lot of them were red, and they were not red by 0.5% or 1%. Some of these names were down pretty big, and it wasn't just 1 or 2 names. It was kind of across the board. You had a few names holding up the market, and that's kind of the market we're in right now. So I will go over HIMS. ERSDL, I'm not sure what that is. AMD, we'll check that out. DOGEUSD, not sure what that one is either. We'll definitely go over a couple other names on the crypto side, starting with Dogecoin. This thing has just really had quite a move up, like the rest of the crypto space. But once again, you can see here that we are starting to show a little bit of weakness here, right around 32 cents. We did hit a high of around 35 cents today. And the main thing that I'd be watching for is really possibly a test of this trend line below. And all you need to do is anchor a VWAP from this low, anchor another VWAP from the touch here. And if I were to guess, based on just using the volume weighted average price, 26 to 27 would possibly be an area of interest below. If that breaks down, you do have your trend line below right around, let's say 25. So all in all, starting to look like crypto needs to take a little bit of a break. And interestingly enough, crypto generally will move with the market. Crypto is definitely kind of a risk-off type of trade. So it's not shocking to see crypto going up and the market following it. But the fact that we are starting to see a little bit of a pullback here, it's something to keep in mind. Now, we could always do one of these. We got this candle here. It looks pretty rough. We get a nice candle the next day and we continue up. So definitely not saying that can't happen here. If that was the case, let's do one of these. Apply that here. And so if that was the case, that would put us in the mid 40s if we had a similar move to as we did in early August. So all in all, a lot of people will ask me, well, what's going to happen next week? Or what's going to happen, with earnings? I have no idea. I have no crystal ball. I just look at price action. I'm not here to predict the markets. I'm here to come up with levels and get an idea of what's the upside, what's the downside. And then if those upside or downside levels are broken, then you move on to the next levels. There's no really trying to predict the market. Obviously, trading, you want to make money and you buy things for a reason. But, for someone to be like, hey, what's going to happen tomorrow? I have no idea. And nobody does. And if they tell you that they know what's going to happen tomorrow, then they're lying, to put it pretty bluntly. So all in all, Dogecoin, watch for possibly a pullback to around the mid-20s. And that's kind of what I'm seeing there. Now, if we go to the weekly chart, just get a better view of kind of what's going on here, you'll see that we do have, let's go to the Kraken. You'll see here something very interesting. Notice here that we do have this longer term trend line. We did break down through it back in early July. And notice where we're having trouble breaking through. Right at this previous support line now acting as resistance. So this is a great case study on previous support acting as resistance. And if we can't break through this line, that's definitely something worth considering going into the rest of the week. We could get a pullback simply because we're at a technical level where it's likely that we would have a pullback. Polkadot. I don't even know what this chart looks like. I'm just curious, actually, at this point. Not a ton of, I guess this is the Coinbase chart. Is Polkadot, was that traded more on something else like Kraken? I guess so. Okay. Yeah, this one's definitely showing some relative strength compared to other crypto names. And if we look at the previous highs here back in May and look at a volume weighted average price, we are starting to break above the volume weighted average price from this high. So, definitely bulls in control. This would be the fifth green week in a row. I'm not a huge fan when you have that many green weeks in a row. It's healthy to have a pullback. So is this one lagging the overall markets? We'll have to see. But I wasn't really too familiar with this one. So thanks for pointing that one out. The other one that I want to go over is Solana, or Solana, however you want to say that. This is one that definitely was on my radar on the crypto side of things, thanks to a couple of friends of mine on the TrendSpider side of things that definitely are very in tune in the market, and we're trading this one. So this one is just showing some incredible relative strength here. We had a nice symmetrical triangle breakout here, and then pretty much just nailed this previous all-time high and actually broke higher. So, this is definitely showing a lot of strength in the market and definitely starting to lead as it hits new all-time highs versus Bitcoin and Ethereum that still aren't near all-time highs. Another one that you can always look at is Chainlink. Another one that kind of has led the market in the past, not so much now. So if you look at Chainlink, it's not doing a ton. This was actually leading the market back when we bottomed out in the COVID days and was really one to watch. And now just kind of stuck. So all in all, we do have technically a green day here. It's not looking too strong going into the rest of the day. and that is from 13 all the way up to around 30. So once again, it's up over 100% in the last pretty much month. So it wouldn't shock me to see some type of pullback. Same thing, just anchor a VWAP from the swing low, and your anchor VWAP is right around 21 here. So we'll have to see what happens, but that is kind of an overview of crypto. And let's go into some individual names, starting with PENN. This is one that I did get in today, and I will stop out pretty quick if it continues to go the opposite way. I did trade this one a couple days ago, had like a 30% profit on the $85 calls for October, took my profit. Thank goodness, because we dropped. But now I did get back in. We definitely closed near the low, so not the strongest setup going into tomorrow. But the main thing that I'm looking at here is kind of the weekly view, where if you anchor the volume by price from the lows from COVID, you'll see we're trading right at this volume shelf. Now, if the volume shelf does not hold, we're pretty much, the volume shelf goes all the way down to around 66.50 or so. So until that really changes, you know, that's kind of the status quo. So that's why I definitely bought some longer dated calls. I bought the October 15th calls, $80 calls. So definitely pretty far out of the money, but this thing has a history of moving quite strongly. So you can see here that you know, you have had candles in the past, weekly candles that have moved up 20% in a week. So just keep that in mind. This thing has literally dropped from the highs to where we're at now, over 50%. And nothing has really changed. Sports gambling arguably has just become more popular, but you have more people in the sports gambling side of things and just gambling side of things in general. So maybe that's why we're having trouble, but there's not really any gambling stocks that are doing great right now. But you've got the NFL coming up. You've got kind of sports season starting again. So we'll have to see if this is a flush or a bigger move. As I mentioned, my stop is pretty tight here. If we go to the daily chart, I would definitely stop out at this previous kind of area here before earnings. So let's say around 65.80. Like I said, I do have time on the call, so that's why I kind of bought some time, because it's kind of in a chop mode right now. But all you need is a couple big moves to the upside, and all of a sudden, you know, calls are flying. So let's see what happens here. But for now, not the strongest daily candle, and we'll stop out if we have to. HIMS, another one that I will stop out if I have to. Pretty ugly close here, I gotta admit, just absolutely hideous. The reason why I'm still in this one is the weekly chart setup, but with today's action, we'll have to see what happens in the next coming days. The main area that I'd be watching is this previous low right around 725. If we anchor the volume by price from the highs here, you'll see that we do have quite the volume shelf forming here. We have huge volume last week. That was another thing that caught my attention, just this huge area of a volume. On top of that, if you look at the raindrop chart, you'll see that HIMS literally had 9 red weeks in a row, finally had a pretty strong green week, and then just an absolute, pardon my French, just shit show today, along with a lot of other names. So it's not like, you know, the market did amazing and HIMS did bad. I mean, look at a ton of names, NNOX, Wish. All these names just got destroyed, and we'll go over a couple of those. But for me, the trade is definitely on the weekly side of things. I got in on the daily with some of that divergence forming. And then, you know, as I mentioned, I'm not going to get married to the stock. If it breaks down much lower than the 725 area, I'll probably stop out, move on, and take my loss. And that's, a lot of people have trouble taking a loss. You know, there's always another trade out there. Don't get so into a trade where you're just like, you know, I have to stay in this because I already, you know, I've got this sunk cost. I already put so much money in and I've lost it. I might as well stay in. That's not necessarily how trading works. So definitely keeping an eye on it to stop out. But for now, I am still in, and we'll see what happens. Huge volume shelf, a lot of red weeks in a row. And this previous low is definitely what you want to watch on HIMS around 725. Fubo, another one that did not have a great day. I mean, there's not a lot of stocks that had a like stellar week stellar start to the week. So if you look at Fubo, this one is definitely still holding the levels it needs to. Main levels here to watch are the ascending triangle support down here that we pretty much closed right above. So you can see here the last time we were at this area, we did have a pretty big move to the upside. We'll see if that's the case here. And you'll notice a lot of volume today was on the lower side. Notice that we had a pretty big move down, but your volume bars were not very big. These were low volume sell-offs for the most part. Even if you look at HIMS on the daily chart, you definitely did have some high volume, but you had much higher volume at higher prices. So let's see what happens there. Same thing with Fubo, though. You definitely did not have the uptick in volume like you generally see on a true sell-off. So Fubo, for the most part, status quo stays the same until this ascending triangle breaks down or bounces off support. You filled the earnings gap already, and now we're just kind of hanging out. If we anchor a VWAP from this low, you'll see that the anchor VWAP is literally right in conjunction with this support below, and that's right around 2620 to 2630, let's say. And so just keep that in mind. And what's really interesting is in the last 4 days, this thing has dropped almost 20% from the highs. So generally, you're going to at least get some type of short-term bounce after a move like that in such a short period of time. So that is Fubo. PLTR is next on the list, and it looks like that was actually a request here. This one actually looks pretty decent. You've got these wicks. So let's turn on the volume by price from the swing high. And you'll see here that if we anchor the volume weighted average price from this low here on July 19th, that is kind of right in line with this next volume shelf below. So let's say around 23.20 all the way down to around 22.75 would be your level below to keep an eye on. You do have a gap below as well that literally would fill right at that anchored VWAP right around 23.20. So we'll just have to see what happens. But all in all, this thing did hold better than some of the other names out there. If you anchor VWAP from the swing high here, you'll see that pretty much your levels would be 23.20 up to around 23.50. So if we do move down, keep this general area highlighted in orange, kind of an area to keep an eye on, 23.20 to 23.50. Tesla, another one that got rocked today. And Tesla is not a small cap by any stretch of the imagination. This is over a $500 billion company. So if you look at the volume shelf, we did break through this area last week, moved right back down through it this week, and you'll see here if we anchor the volume by price from the swing low, we pretty much bounced right at that anchor VWAP. And if we anchor the VWAP as well from the actual low back in May, you'll see here that if we did break down through this VWAP right around 680, your next level below would be, let's say, around 645 to around 655. And that is just simply looking at this blue line, which is the volume weighted average price from the May low, and this next level of volume below. So not the best look on Tesla, simply because you just have, you've got this volume gap here. You don't have a lot of liquidity holding in this area. You did bounce off the anchored VWAP from this pivot, but if we do break down, your next level, as I mentioned, is 645 to 655. So Tesla's a great example of this. Was not localized to small caps today. This was a bigger move to the downside for a lot of these different names. Tesla being one of them, definitely one of the larger market caps, almost a 5% move to the downside. SONO, this is one that the Benzinga team was interested in me checking out. I have no idea what this name is, so let's just kind of look at it together. Interestingly enough, what is this? Sonos. I mean, it's a very strong stock. That's for sure. And what's interesting is, the last couple days you've had these gap ups and then a move to the downside. So you do have these gap ups and then sellers take over from there. And this is where you just have to kind of take price action into account. These previous highs here, kind of right around, let's say 44 to 45, highlighted in orange, which is just the previous highs. That would be our area above. And if we do look at the volume weighted average price from this low, and we did move down, one, you've got a gap. If I turn on the gap snake here, you'll see here that we do have this gap below right around 38.70. So that would be your gap fill below, right around 38.70. And you do have that VWAP right around 38 on the dot. So I'm not a huge fan of these solid gray candles. That means that we technically closed higher than the previous day, but we closed lower than what we opened at. That's where this dark shaded gray area comes from. Anytime you have a light shaded gray candle, that means that you opened down here, you closed up here. So the only way I like to describe it is kind of like opening a window shade. So when your open is at the bottom of the window and you open up and you put the window shade at the top of the window, you're kind of opening the shade. And so your open's down here, you're closed at the top, you're opening the window shade, sun's coming in. Here, when you have a solid gray candle, technically, as I mentioned, you're closing green on the day, but you open up here and you're closing the window shade. So you're kind of not letting that sunlight come in, and you can kind of look at that dark gray bar as kind of, not letting sun come in. So I wouldn't say the strongest close today, but we'll have to see. We did have one of these gray candles a couple days ago, and we continued up after that. So that's all I know about SONO. I guess it's a quarantine trade. Speakers. Okay. I guess it's a speaker company. So yeah, definitely something to, I guess, keep in mind. I'm not sure what the speakers mean, but something's going right for the company. I mean, this thing's had quite a run from 662 or so from the lows in March 2020, and now we're trading at 39. So they're doing something right, that's for sure. I'm just not incredibly familiar with the business model. Brandon, I cannot tell you anytime there's a good entry or good exit. That is up to you as an individual trader. I don't give financial advice like that. I'm not licensed, and everyone's got to pick their own entries and exits. NEO, this one has gotten destroyed as well. Okay, SONO possibly has a. I guess I live under a rock. Yes. So yes, SONO. I guess something with Apple. I guess we'll look more into it. I don't know anything about SONO, but NEO. Next one we're going to look at, another one that just got destroyed over the last few days. From the high back in July around 55. Now we're at 38. This one did look decent actually on the weekly chart. And you had the this kind of bull flag setting up, and then you pretty much just got rejected right at the supply here. So all in all, not the strongest looking chart. If you anchor a VWAP from the swing low, we're definitely below the anchored VWAP here. So yeah, I think something came out with NEO. I think something with like they were gonna regulate the automated driving more or something like that. So I'm not exactly sure what the deal is there, but it's not shocking. The whole market was red. NEO was down, what, 7%? So, and the same thing with NEO. Someone may look at NEO and have it in their portfolio and say, oh my gosh, what happened to NEO? Well, look at the rest of the market. The rest of the market was incredibly red too. It wasn't just NEO. It was just one of those days in the market. So turnaround Tuesday, is that still a thing? We'll have to see. Is Doge going to drop again? I have no idea. Oh yeah, the autopilot crash. Thank you, Brandon. That's what it was in China, I think. So NEO, hard to say if it was news or was just kind of following the broad markets at this point. NAOV. This is one that the Benzinga team also had me take a look at. I'm not necessarily a fan of looking at stocks under a $100 million market cap personally. but we'll take a look. You can see here that we definitely had a nice strong move to the upside in late July, consolidated for a bit, hit a new high today, barely. And this is where you want to pull out the raindrops, right? So you've got this wick here. So we hit a high of around 408 to 410 today, and then closed way down here at like 334. So the thing that I always will ask myself is, what went on within this wick? So that's when you turn on the raindrop chart and you kind of see, all right, what was going on within this wick? In this case, you can see that quite a bit of volume was actually near the top of the range today. So, you know, definitely a stronger raindrop look than the actual regular candle with that big of a wick, and closing kind of near probably the lower 25% of the day's range. But the raindrop actually looks pretty strong. So keep that in mind for NAOV. It is a small cap. I personally wouldn't get involved in this. It's just too small of a market cap for me. But, you know, relatively strong day considering the market conditions. Can someone kick Oz Abru out of here with the spamming? So yeah, so that's NAOV. Disney is another one I definitely have on the watch list. And this is one that is kind of interesting. I mean, one thing I'll point out here on the daily chart is we did have a red close today, but we actually had a green raindrop. So anytime you have a green raindrop but a red close, it's worth noting, kind of a new type of divergence. So in this case, you can see that we did fill the gap below from earnings, just from the Friday gap up. And we actually did almost fill it to the upside as well. So all in all, this is one that's kind of just like, what is going on here? There's not really any type of direction here at all. So we'll just have to see kind of what happens there. But on the weekly chart, we kind of have a much better view of what's going on. You'll see here that if we anchor the volume by price from the October 2020 pivot, you'll see that we've got this huge volume shelf here. We're trading right within this anchored VWAP pinch. And this is a perfect example of, you know, there's no point in trying to guess what's going to happen here. You just simply look at the anchored VWAP to the downside, you look at the anchored VWAP to the upside, and you kind of take it from there. So if we break, and this is kind of how you should look at trading, if we break this high, then you should expect continuation to the upside. If we break this low, this anchored VWAP below around, let's say 170, then look for a stronger move to the downside. But until then, this thing is just chopping around. You don't have a lot of direction. You haven't had a lot of direction literally since the beginning of May. So this one, you know, this one is very much stuck and has got to be incredibly frustrating for those trading options. I traded this one last week simply on the earnings pop, sold out immediately. I have no emotional connection to Disney. If I have, you know, over 50% profit on an options trade, I'm definitely going to take it. What's your thoughts on Afghanistan chaos? I think it's just noise, to be completely honest. It's I don't think it's really affecting the market at all. It could be a reason for the market to move down. The market's always looking for a reason to move up, move down. Maybe that's what the reason is today. But in the long term, I don't see that really changing the dynamic of the market at all. We've been in a war for 20 years. It's just another news article and an event that's happening right now. In 2 weeks, probably won't even be talking about it. So that's my thoughts on Afghanistan. Wish, woo, yeah, this one is definitely, I'm sure, on a few people's radar. This is one that I was trading. I got out before earnings. Just didn't like the price action. Honestly, I just didn't like how many people were in this. You know, this was just an overcrowded trade. Anytime you have an overcrowded trade and then you have a news event, generally is sell the news event. So not what I'd call the strongest raindrop here. You can see that most of the volume was at the bottom of the range today, and barely missed the lows from Friday. So anytime you have a gap down like this, you're generally going to have about a week or two at least of just the dust settling and really not much movement at all. Now there was movement, but within this range, right? So the range for Friday was 670 all the way up to around 786. So if I had to guess, I would guess that we're probably going to trade within this range or break further down before this thing actually catches any type of bottom. So probably not the news a lot of people want to hear, but that's just kind of what I'm seeing on the chart. I don't have any connection to Wish. I don't really even know the fundamental story. I know it's e-commerce, and people think it's going to blow up, and it could. But for now, the price action just saying the dust is still settling, and that's kind of what we can do from there. VISL, this is one that definitely had an interesting move, and once again in VISL fashion, closes at 0% on the day. So I guess they acquired somebody today. You can see here that we did have quite a big volume spike. We had a move all the way up to around 220, and then literally closed around $2. So, or what did we close at? Did we close at $2, or is that just the after hours? Yeah, 204, I guess, is what we closed at. So, VIS1, I mentioned, if we're looking at the weekly chart, I mentioned that, this would probably go down to around 180, 190. We tagged that today. You can see here, this was kind of my thesis here on the weekly chart. You had your support below, and that was where, it kind of made sense for the price to go. It did actually look pretty good last week, and then broke down, and that was invalidated. But you can see here that we are holding right at this this symmetrical triangle support here, and we'll just have to see if that holds. Now, this is the weekly chart. If you look at the regular candles here, decent candle forming, but it's only Monday. You can never look at a weekly candle on a Monday. There's literally 4 days left in the week. This weekly candle is not going to look anything like this, likely at least, by Friday. So that is VISL, and that's actually the last one I had. That's the only one I had on the list. So what do you guys want to see now? Because I am done with my list. I'm gonna look at my phone, see what's on the chat.
Hey man, can we do Chewy?
Chewy, yes.
Yeah, let's do Chewy.
Hey, yes. Yeah, Chewy, wow, down 4%. Yeah. So, all of these names have gotten hit. It was not a localized move today. You had these random names that kind of held the market up, and then you had your Chewies of the world, your Neos of the world, your Teslas of the world down 4 to 6%. This is another one. So on the weekly chart, you can see here that we have the inverse head and shoulders, which did break out last week, and now we're kind of trading within last week's range. And if you look at the daily chart, this previous horizontal level here is now kind of acting as, I don't want to even say support. It did break down and close through it, but this was definitely the area we needed to break through, right around 92.50, and then we closed right around 91.75 today. So yeah, I mean, this has had a very strong run. It bottomed out in May and 64, and now it's at 91. So definitely a nice move. But once again, just another name that's kind of gotten hit. And if we wanted to draw some quick trend lines here, you've got your support. You've got kind of this, what I call kind of this ascending wedge here. And notice that honestly, I'd say this is probably the main pattern you want to look at. So you've got the ascending triangle here. You've got, and this is kind of what I would do. I would almost draw, kind of take this high, move it over, and make this kind of a parallel line. All right, so if you guys want to kind of see how I do these trend lines with the zones. So that's your resistance area. We'd make this is wick, wick to wick. So we'd make this solid. And then just make this kind of parallel. And that's kind of the area you want to watch. So if I were to watch Chewy right here, break above this resistance line, bullish, break below it, bearish. If you anchor the VWAP from this pivot on July 19th, your anchored VWAP is right around 87. So anytime you have the anchored VWAP right below this support, it is worth noting that you can have a little bit of a flush below support and still hold if you've got the anchored VWAP there. So Chewy, ascending wedge, weekly breakout of this inverse head and shoulders, and then on the monthly, actually looks pretty good. So it's what, August 16th. So we still have quite a bit of time left in August for this monthly candle to form. But if you anchor the volume by price from the COVID low here, we do have a nice volume shelf forming. So, oh yeah, that was the COVID low. So you've got a nice volume shelf forming here. This is when you want to zoom out. This is, and that's why I only really trade on the weekly and the monthly chart. Everyone will say, well, the chart broke down today. Well, look at the weekly chart. Look at the monthly chart. Is it really breaking down? Now, if you're trading options and you're trading short-term options, definitely you don't want to just look at the weekly chart. Every day you're losing, value, especially if you're out of the money. But if you're just holding common stock, you definitely want to zoom out because a lot of the time the trend is very much still intact, just like you can see on Chewy here. So that is Chewy. Airbnb. Actually, let's do Coin. I don't even know. What did Coin do today? Was this another? Monthly still looks pretty good. Yeah, so Coin. And Coin's hard because you don't have a lot of price action since the IPO. But I think a lot of people thought Coin was going to explode from earnings. Probably was a little bit of a crowded trade. That's why you got the sell-off after the news. And if we anchor the volume by price from this low, you'll see that we're literally trading right at it. So, if this were to bounce on Coin, this would be an area to bounce. You've got the gap above. If we turn on the gap snake, just the automated gap detection, you can see here that the gap closes right around 274.37, 274.40. And if it does break down, definitely keep an eye on the anchored VWAP here right around 254. So if we break down through 254 on the daily, actually, let's do a little science experiment here. So, all right, so we've got the anchored VWAP from this low here on July 19th. July 19th was a low that a lot of stocks just put in a low at, including the market. Now, notice here, I can't really go and say, yeah, if Coin breaks down below this 253.75 area, it's going to continue down because look what happened here. We broke down through this anchored VWAP and we reversed right after we broke down. So this is what I like to do. I'll add an anchored VWAP band. So I've got a percentage band here and I wonder if it's like 5% below that anchored VWAP. Oops. No, so it's definitely not. It's probably like negative 2.5. Yeah, so you'll see here that this is why I like to use anchored VWAP bands because not all of the time the anchored VWAP, which is this line here, is going to act as perfect support. So you can see here, this second band here is simply just 2.5% lower than the original anchored VWAP from the low. So, if we break down below around 247.50, that's when I would consider probably this a breakdown. But for now, we could move below the anchored VWAP and still probably be okay. So definitely you want to use anchored VWAP bands. This is something that's on TrendSpider. It creates a zone rather than an exact area on the chart. And this allows you to have some margin of error for your trades. So that is coin. Home Depot actually did hold pretty good. Home Depot is one of the few ones that actually was green today. Daily chart looks pretty strong. You still haven't hit all-time highs on Home Depot. All-time highs right around 246. 346. And if you look at the weekly chart, I'm just going to use some Bollinger Bands, honestly, on this one. So if you were to use the Bollinger Bands as an area to the upside, your Bollinger Band is right around 350. So if we continue up here on Home Depot, then 350 is probably an area above that you'd want to keep an eye on. But remember, the Bollinger Bands can always pull one of these and kind of do one of those. So if the price starts to go into this upper band, you can continue to move up with the band. So Home Depot is looking very strong. This is kind of reminding me a little bit of March with some of these names like Home Depot actually moving up pretty good when the market's kind of looking crappy. AMD, yeah, we'll do AMD. We have 5 more minutes. AMD, oh wow, look at that. Perfect move on AMD today. So if you guys are not familiar with the anchored volume weighted average price pinch, this is essentially something where if you're measuring your volume weighted average price from a swing low and then measuring your volume weighted average price from a swing high, this creates a kind of pinch here. So notice how the price is kind of trading within this area here. It's kind of trading in between these two areas. And that's what creates the pinch. And so the way the pinch works is, and this is where you want to add your volume by price. If you look at the pinch, same thing. You just have levels, right? If the price breaks above this anchored VWAP high, all-time high anchored VWAP, probably bullish. If you break below this swing low anchored VWAP, bearish. So you don't have to look at it that deep. You find one level, you find another level, one to the upside, one to the downside. And if the price breaks that to the upside, probably going to continue higher. If it breaks to the downside, probably going to break down. Now, the nice thing here is you've got a pretty big volume shelf here. So, not only do you have the anchored VWAP from the swing low, but you also have quite a big volume shelf kind of holding price as well. We'll have to see if that actually holds. So that's AMD. I guess Apple. Wow. What the heck? Wow. Yeah. Okay. What a day for Apple. At one point, I was looking at Apple and it was down quite a bit, but that is likely what moved the markets higher. Good old Apple. So same thing here. You bounce right off this volume shelf. I mean, literally almost to the T, and you actually hit new highs. So you've got all-time highs here on Apple. Nice breakout. This is where I definitely pull out the raindrop chart just to see where the volume was for the day. And notice here, you actually have a decent amount of volume above this this horizontal level. So you can see here, pretty much from 150 all the way up to around 151. A decent amount of volume here during the second half of the day. And if you're not familiar with a raindrop is a volume weighted chart. It allows you to see the volume profile within the day's range. So you're actually able to see what's going on without having to go down to the 2-minute or the 5-minute chart to see where that volume came in. All of that information is in the candle already. So this squiggly line here simply will tell you, like, okay, there's decent volume profile at the top of the range. To me, that tells me that there's conviction by buyers, and they're willing to absorb supply above this previous high. So yeah, now we know why SPY had such a strong day to end the day. You had Apple closing near the high of the day. You had SPY closing near the high of the day. You had the Qs closing near the high of the day, and you can thank Apple for that. If we quickly look at Microsoft, I'm sure Microsoft had a pretty similar day. Yep. Let's see where it actually closed, though. Yep, near the high of the day. So once again, your large cap names are leading the way. So that is kind of what's going on here. How much is TrendSpider subscription? So we have a few different plans on TrendSpider. Just go to TrendSpider.com, go to the pricing tab. So if we quickly go to that, TrendSpider.com, pricing, you can see we have a master, elite, and a premium subscription. And you can check out what each subscription kind of entails here. And we do have a 7-day free trial. We also have the BZ25 coupon code that you can use. So B is in Benzinga, Z is in Zebra, 25. BZ25 is how you can try it out with a free trial. We have time for one more. I've had a lot of people asking me about MU, so might as well check out MU.
It's a dog.
Yeah, what the heck is going on with MU? I mean, NVIDIA, AMD near all-time highs or at all-time highs. MU off almost 20% from the highs. I don't even know what happened here. I'm assuming maybe bad earnings. Spencer, do you know?
Combination of things. This is the worst performing group of that, worst performer of that sector. So it's been the dog of the group. They've had issues with their product line, so and supply chain, everything.
Yeah.
It's of all the bad headlines you've heard about semis, they all pertain to Micron.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I mean, look at this anchored VWAP. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times this thing held. Finally, it broke down last week. So, yeah, MU not the strongest candle on the weekly chart. Can't really look at it too much because it's only Monday. But yeah, I wouldn't say the strongest look there, especially if AMD and NVIDIA break down. This thing's probably going to lead the way to the opposite way. So that is all the time we have. Thank you, everybody. MU started paying dividends. I guess I'm not exactly sure. So Spencer, if you know,
that's something, I guess. That's a silver lining.
Yeah, so I guess buy it and get the dividends at least. But yeah,
I don't know.
This is a weird one, but all in all, that is all the time we have for today. Remember, BZ25. I'm using TrendSpider for all these charts. You can try it out. We have different plans. Get 25% off any of the plans that you choose using that BZ25 coupon code. And Spencer, I will hand it off to you.
And thank you, Jake. And I will wrap it up, guys. Drop Jake a like. We'd appreciate that. And that'll do it for the TrendSpider Chart Roundup. We're doing a replay of the Power Hour right now. We've got the Rail Report at 7 o'clock. That's a wrap, guys. Have a good one.